late after a heavy night and are bewildered and confused. It is 10 o'clock. We are on British summer time. We're used to stories, aren't we, about Tory splits, particularly Tory splits on Europe. In fact, ever since the Maastricht Treaty a quarter of a century ago, that's been one of the dominant themes in our papers. And of course, the old saying that divided parties don't win elections is generally pretty much true. So we're always focused on these divisions. We very rarely focus on divisions that exist within the Labour Party, but I really think they're beginning to open up, and I want to talk about them. Why? Well, Owen Smith, Northern Ireland spokesman, but don't forget, the man that stood against Corbyn as leader and managed to get about a third of the vote, Owen Smith basically come out again and reiterated his call for there to be a second referendum on the result of whatever deal Mrs May comes back from Brussels with. And he's been very promptly sacked by Jeremy Corbyn, as indeed were three frontbenchers last year, who voted on a resolution for us to stay in a single market. So at times, we see this hard man Corbyn. We see him putting down the argument there should be a second referendum, and I'm guessing he's doing it because he understands there are 4.5 million people who voted for Corbyn's Labour Party last June, who in the previous year had voted for Brexit. But there's also, I think, a slight inconsistency with the way in which Jeremy Corbyn is leading this party. Because Diane Abbott, the Shadow Home Secretary, long-term, of course, personal friend, and one of the closest confidants I think that Jeremy Corbyn has got, and we see here, her writing back to a constituent saying that she thinks, actually, the chance to have a second vote is right. She says, I will argue for the right of the electorate to vote on any deal that is finally agreed. So she doesn't use the word referendum, but she makes it absolutely clear that she's backing it. She hasn't been sacked, but Owen Smith has been sacked, and indeed others have been sacked. So they're split on Europe, but they've also got some real problems on the issue of anti-Semitism. And this keeps on coming back again and again and again. And the latest instalment is the mural, a street mural which showed, Jewish financiers sitting round the table plotting the future of the world. It was the old Jewish global conspiracy story there, writ large, for all to see, and it was about to be removed, and Corbyn said he didn't think that it should. He now says he regrets having made that statement and wished he'd looked at the picture more closely. But boy, you don't need to look at that picture for more than about half a second to see the message that it's giving. And some who feel that Labour has gone so heavily for the growing Muslim vote in this country that it's allowed voices within there who are seen to be anti-Semitic. And certainly, evidence that around the country, Labour Party meetings have been held where women sit on one side of the room and men sit on the other side of the room. Something I didn't think we'd see happening in modern Britain. So the question this morning, to begin with, is the Labour Party now seriously split? And for those of you who are seeing the front page of The Observer and other newspapers, I will, at 11 o'clock, talk about the Leave campaign, its relationship with Cambridge Analytica, my role in it, because my picky seems to appear in a few of the papers this morning, and we'll do that at 11 o'clock. I will ask you at 11 o'clock whether you think the Leave campaign cheated its way to victory. But for now, is the Labour Party seriously split? And if you agree with me that actually these splits are beginning to emerge and could become quite serious, then please call me on 0345 60 60 973. Or if you think, no, this is just ordinary day party politics, there are always differences of view and opinion, then you can text to 84850. Or maybe you think Labour needs a new leader or a shift in its direction, in which case tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. Watch me on Facebook and comment there too. I'm going to go to Dave, who's calling from Hammersmith. Dave, good morning.
Good morning, Nigel.
So is the Labour Party split in your view, Dave?
I don't think it is, but I think it should be. I think the problem we've got is that the MPs, the Labour MPs, I mean all MPs to be honest, but particularly the Labour ones at the moment, they're self-serving. They don't have the courage of their convictions. They daren't split because they think, Corbyn might just win it. And I think that the Labour Party has been infiltrated by what appears to me to be a communist-type party. I mean, it's similar to what you've got going on in Cuba, where they infiltrate, they teach the young, and, they start creating these youth groups and things like that. And you've only to look, actually, at Corbyn himself. So we saw him being incredibly unpatriotic with the whole Russian thing. We see him immediately...
Why was it, Dave, why was it unpatriotic to question whether the Prime Minister had evidence?
There's a time and there's a place, and that was a time when we needed to stand together against an enemy or a country that's acting like an enemy. That I wouldn't say they are an enemy; they shouldn't be, but they are behaving like one. And when you've got a police officer, in hospital, he was in hospital, very seriously injured.
So you saw that, Dave. You saw that as a my country, right or wrong moment, yeah?
I think at that particular moment, because it was the announcement by Theresa May, that to me...
All right,
was
OK, no, fine, you've made your point on that, Dave, you've made your point on that. All right, going on from there,
these politicians, these Labour politicians, they had a few goes at being elected, and they messed up. And so they've put Corbyn in, and they've all voted against him, haven't they? How many? 3 times is it now? And finally, he got in. He managed to beat those off. So they say, okay, well, we can't get rid of him. We'll ride with him. And yet, so many of them, through their history, were there with Blair, and really don't share the same political core.
They don't.
So they should have the courage of their convictions, form a new party, and let the communist Corbyn run his own communist party.
Right, so you would suggest, Dave, a new SDP? They got to find a new Roy Jenkins and a fresh start.
Oh God, no! I think at the end of the day, I mean, I lived through that. That was awful.
Well, they did get a lot of votes, Dave.
Well, I think the problem they've got is how they are structured, about how they are elected, how their leaders are elected. The percentage of vote,
right.
The way they've rigged all that. I think that's the bit that's not. It seems to me to be a bit dodgy.
So, in short, Dave, they don't look really split, but they should be.
Well, they should be. They've created all these spend £20 or spend £3 and you can vote.
I know.
And that's how they elected Corbyn.
Yep.
And then
they
did. Put the price up to 30 quid.
Pretty effective. Quite good management. Actually, very capitalist of Corbyn to behave in that way. Dave, I thank you for your call. Sue says to me on text, get over yourself, Owen Smith. The Blairites are a thing of the past. Jeremy is here to stay. Sue, I think this gets to the heart of why I think they're split. The Parliamentary Party just about manages to hang together. They can see it's in their common interest not to be too divided too often in public. But there is a gulf between the Parliamentary Party, which is still essentially Blairite, and the Labour Party in the country, which has radically changed over the course of the last few years and is very much a Corbynite and very left-wing political party. And I think that split can only get bigger over time, because what's going to happen is momentum, and they've made it pretty clear, are going to start a process where they want to deselect what they see as soft centre Blairite. So I think these divisions are there. I think clearly the row over anti-Semitism is part of it. Absolutely, whether to have a second referendum is a part of it too. And my guess is that Corbyn is in control of that grassroots party, and he will not want a Labour Party to be voting for resolutions on a second referendum, because he knows that leaves him open and vulnerable, and millions of votes could be lost. Let me know whether you think I'm right or wrong by calling me on 0345 6060 973. Daniel is calling me from Barnet. Good morning, Daniel.
Good morning, Nigel. I just wanted to say that I think I do agree with you that Corbyn hasn't got the backing of the entire Labour Party or the entire country. I'm a student from North London, and I think that he's probably enthralled my generation to vote, but I think he's not focused enough on the older generations, and I think that's maybe where he's losing the backing of his party.
Well, certainly, Daniel. I think of areas like South Wales, the Midlands of England, the north of England, where a lot of middle-aged and older people from lifelong Labour families went out and voted Brexit, and did so with a real passion in their hearts. So he's in trouble with them, isn't he?
Yeah, most definitely. And I think what you said earlier...
Unless Daniel, the sacking of Owen Smith shows you that he's going to resolutely make sure we get over the hurdle of March the 29th next year so that we do leave the Treaty of Rome.
I think what you said earlier really does ring true about Corbyn coming through as a smart man sacking Owen Smith.
Yep.
And I think that if we see that more from Mr Corbyn, then there might be more confidence in him, because I feel like not enough people are taking him seriously. He's definitely got some policies there, and he's definitely got some understanding and some aspirations, but I think he needs to put himself through as a real politician and a real force to be reckoned with a bit more.
Yep, okay, well, and how do you rate Owen Smith as a public performer?
Not very highly.
No, I'll tell you what, he's got amazing self-confidence for somebody without too much experience of frontline politics. I was on Question Time with him the other week, and boy, this guy believes in himself and believes in his policies, and I will give him that. Daniel, I thank you for your call. And Owen Smith has really got form on this because, he said repeatedly there should be a second referendum. He's also basically said that Northern Ireland should remain part of the European Union. He thinks if Northern Ireland leaves, he says that will undo the Good Friday Agreement. It will undo the peace process. And he said that at meetings organised by Sinn Féin. I wonder, does Owen Smith actually want a united Ireland? Is that part of what he believes in too? I don't know. If you do, call me. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show exclusively on LBC. It is now 10:15. Before we return to the issue of just how badly split is the Labour Party as Jeremy Corbyn sacks Owen Smith for calling once again for a second referendum on the final deal, spare a thought this Sunday morning for France, where flags are flying at half-mast at gendarmeries right across the country, and I'm talking, of course, about the death of 44-year-old Lieutenant Colonel Arnaud Beltrame, a man who had graduated in the French military, served as a peacekeeper out in Iraq, and who did something truly extraordinary outside Carcassonne the other morning when an ISIS-inspired lone gunman had taken hostages, and he volunteered to put himself in return for one of the hostages being released. And in doing so, he kept his phone open so that people on the outside could track what was going on. And clearly he thought that as and when things kicked off at the end, that he'd be able to do something. And unfortunately, he was seriously wounded and he has died. And, the word hero gets thrown around. We talk about, footballers and people being heroes. And I don't think there are many real heroes these days, but this guy, for what he's done, is a hero, total hero. Greater love hath no man than he lays down his life for another. So spare a thought for Arnaud Beltrame. And also, just remember, there are still some amazing people out there in this world. Not everybody is bitter, cynical and horrible, and it's tragic that he finished up losing his life. Back to the Labour Party, back to infighting, back to rows over anti-Semitism, a Blairite party in the Commons, dragging Corbyn towards accepting some form of customs union membership post-Brexit. But it does look like Brexit, in terms of how people vote in Parliament, that Corbyn wants to stop the calls for a second referendum, unless, of course, those calls are made by Diane Abbott, and then, apparently, it's absolutely fine. So there are some inconsistencies there, too. Sally is calling from Kingston. Good morning, Sally.
Good morning, Nigel, and my sympathy goes to the family of Arnaud.
Absolutely.
Firstly. It's very, very tragic. Regarding what's happening in this country, and first of all, can I say something about the peace process? And the one reason that the peace process was very successful in Ireland was because of Twin Towers, because the Americans stopped sending money to the IRA. So I don't think they'll be sending money again to the IRA. I think that's one reason why the IRA would not have success in starting, problems again in Ireland. So that's the first thing. But secondly, as far as Jeremy Corbyn's concerned, I believe that the Labour Party was just trying to hoover up the votes from UKIP after the referendum, and it was tactics all along. I'm not even sure what they believe in. I mean, there's lots of individuals that believe different things, and it was just a question of getting into power. And that's the same situation I feel for this. I'm afraid turning against Jewish people. There's more Muslims than there are Jewish, and they were just going for votes. So the whole thing's tactics. It's not belief. It's get into power. And
but ultimately, Sally, and I do rather agree with you, because the clever thing that Corbyn did in the general election last June, using his manifesto, he convinced former UKIP voters to return to Labour, whilst at the same time hoovering up an awful lot of Remain voters amongst the younger generation and in London and Bristol and elsewhere. But you can't go on riding both horses forever, can you? At some point, you have to come clean with where you really stand. And I'm beginning to get the feeling, Sally. I mean, he must be very frustrated because, his own parliamentary party is way more Europhile than he's ever been. He's an old Bennite, he opposed all the EU treaties over the years. But do you get the feeling that he's now put Diane Abbott accepted, that he is putting a red line down? He does not want Labour MPs now calling for a second referendum.
But I personally would go for a second referendum, because I think that the pressure from the Remain is causing a terrible deal. We're not going to get a good deal at all.
No.
And when you look at the deal we're going to get, I mean, it is just ridiculous. I personally, if we have another referendum, I'd like to see 3 questions. 1, shall we stay in the EU? 2, shall we stay under the terms they're giving us? And 3, shall we just go off a cliff edge? That's what I would like to see, because I think the British people are. I mean, the way this country.
But there's no appetite, Sally. Sally, there's no. I mean, this is the other interesting thing. Is there is no appetite for a second referendum. Yes, I know Lord Heseltine wants a second referendum, and I know Alistair Campbell wants it to be rerun, and so does Tony Blair and Nick Clegg and others, and Ken Clarke, of course. But actually, if you look at the polling, Sally, it's really consistent. It's about 20% of people that want a second referendum. It's no more than that. And I just wonder whether Corbyn has now recognised that.
But do you not think that the whole of Britain is furious at the deal that we're getting? Do you not think that
Sally,
even those Remainers are furious?
Let me tell you, maybe tomorrow, perhaps the day after, what I will do on my midweek evening show at 7 o'clock is we will dissect what Theresa May has agreed to in terms of our negotiations on a new free trade deal, and the further concessions that were made in Brussels on Friday morning. So I will go through that, and I get more and more frustrated with the watering down. I begin to think more and more it'll be Brexit in name only, Sally. But the big historic moment, I suppose, is leaving that treaty, provided that we do, on March 29th next year.
Well, good luck, that's all I can say, because I think you've got a huge battle to fight.
I don't think it's over by a long chalk, and I wasn't being complacent for one moment, and I still fear the attempt to put a second referendum upon us, but the public are not warming to it. Sally, I thank you very much indeed for your call. And Keir Starmer, who is a very strongly Europhile shadow minister. Of course, Brexit is his responsibility. It's quite interesting that there's an interview with him in the Observer today where he says Article 50 was triggered a year ago. It expires in 52 weeks and a few days, and I don't think there is any realistic prospect of it being revoked. Therefore, we will be leaving the EU in March 2019. So that's what Starmer has said this morning, and quite clearly there, he's come down on the side of Jeremy Corbyn, not on the side of Owen Smith. Jim says, I can't make head nor tail of Labour's leave or remain policy. They were leave before the last election. Then Starmer said they are customs union remain. Perhaps someone should ask their Brexit spokesman Starmer what's their position. At present, it's like shifting sands. Jim, it is desperately confusing, but I do think maybe from the Labour leadership there's a little bit of clarity that they do actually think we have to get out on March the 29th next year, and then possibly almost replicate the form of membership we had before. And many would argue, well, is that any better than where we are? But that, I think, is the position they're heading towards. What about the percentage of Labour voters who voted to leave? Wasn't it around about 40% or more? Surely the hierarchy should take note. Well, actually, it was about 30% of the 2015 Labour vote that voted Brexit. But don't forget, there was a big boost in Labour votes at the last election, and many of them were Brexiteers. My best guess, about 4.5 million Labour voters who'd voted Brexit, who voted Corbyn in 2017. Carol is calling from Uxbridge. Are they split, Carol? Am I right about this?
Yes, 100% they're split. They're like 30 Bassett Brigade.
Right. And what do you think the split... Is it Europe they're split over? Is it the Blairites versus the Corbynites? Where do you see the big divide?
Well, Corbyn is out for himself. 100%. He is a blatant racist. He's not fit for purpose.
He's a blatant racist, did you just say?
Yes.
Could you explain that to us?
All he's interested in is going to get the vote for himself. He doesn't care about the people of Great Britain. He cares for what is projecting image.
But how do you see that, Carol? Carol, how do you see that as racist?
He doesn't care about the people of Great Britain. He's out for himself. All he seems to care about is foreigners in this country, not the people, not what we stand for. Labour does not stand for the working class people anymore.
So, Carol, what you're saying is you believe Corbyn is racist towards the white working classes?
Yes.
In the sense that he looks down upon them?
He's arrogant enough to think that because he's got certain people behind him that use a racist card, he doesn't even consider the people of Great Britain, the workers of Great Britain. So
what are the white working classes who come from Labour families? What will they do at the next election if they feel as you do about Corbyn?
They will not be voting for Labour. They're not fit for purpose. All
right, OK, Carol, strong views there from Carol. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusive on LBC. The time is now 10:30. There are very few of us in this world who can avoid sport, whether we hate it or not. What's the Premier League or whatever it is, sport is everywhere. Now, I confess I'm a big cricket fan. That's the sport that I enjoy following. But here's a cricket story that I think also turns into a bit of a Sunday morning morality tale. I don't know whether you've followed this or not, but Australia are currently playing a test series down against South Africa, and it's led to a big row over cheating. What's it all about? Well, one of the fielders, Cameron Bancroft, one of the youngest players in the side, only played about 8 test matches so far for Australia, was seen on camera producing from his pocket a piece of sticky tape, and the intention was to put granules of dirt on one side of the ball. For those that don't know anything about cricket, if one side is shiny and the other side isn't, it swings and moves through the air, making it more difficult for the batsman. But that is expressly against the rules, but the cameras caught them out. And here was Cameron Bancroft being interviewed about the incident.
I saw an opportunity to potentially use some tape, get some granules from the rough patches on the wicket, and tried to, I guess, change the ball condition. It didn't work. The umpires didn't obviously change the ball, but I guess once I was sighted on the screens and having done that, I came in quite a lot, and that obviously resulted in me shoving it down my trousers. We have this yellow tape in our kit, and it's connected to actually some padding, but the actual sticky stuff itself is it's very sticky, and I felt like it could be used to collect some stuff on the side of the pitch.
So, there's no question, there is a full admission there by that Australian cricketer, an opening batsman, that he did use that tape to try and alter the ball. Question is, why did he do it? Was he told to do it? Well, next, we had an admission of guilt from Steve Smith, their captain.
The leadership group knew about it. We spoke about it at lunch, and I'm not proud of what's happened. It's not within the spirit of the game. My integrity, the team's integrity, the leadership group's integrity has come into question, and rightfully so. It's not on. It's certainly not on, and it won't happen again. I can promise you that under my leadership.
So clearly Steve Smith hopeful that under his leadership would continue. And there is precedent for this because the England captain, Mike Atherton, a couple of decades ago was caught with a bit of dirt in the pocket, using that on the ball. And that led to him being fined, but he stayed on as England captain. Well, all of this was until the Australian Premier, Malcolm Turnbull, decided to comment.
All woke up this morning shocked and bitterly disappointed by the news from South Africa. It seemed completely beyond belief that the Australian cricket team had been involved in cheating. After all, our cricketers are role models, and cricket is synonymous with fair play. How can our team be engaged in cheating like this? It beggars belief.
Well, really strong stuff there from the Aussie Premier, Malcolm Turnbull, pointing out that it's just not cricket. And I'm pleased to say that within the last hour or so, the Australian captain, incredibly talented batsman, the Australian captain, Steve Smith, has stood down as captain, as has vice-captain David Warner. And the reason I'm using this and saying that I think is a good thing is, aren't we all a bit tired of sportsmen who are paid very large sums of money, and yes, who have big pressures upon them, but consistently in all sports, cycling, athletics, whatever it is, there's a constant charge of cheating being made and nobody ever admitting to it. And in this case, they did admit to it. They've been sacked. And I hope that sends a big, strong message to young people who love sport. Actually, if you cheat, in the end, you're going to get found out. So the Labour Party, is it split? Owen Smith has been sacked. The ongoing row over this mural that Jeremy Corbyn didn't think should be removed and was clearly anti-Semitic in nature shows there are real divisions, let alone the division between the Blairites in Parliament and the Corbynites out in the country, particularly in the shape of momentum. George says, by tweet, as a dedicated long-term leaver, I would welcome a referendum on the deal because I don't trust this government. Well, George, there is an argument that if we had a referendum and rejected the deal, we would just leave on WTO terms. But I do not see Theresa May giving you that option. That's my view. David is calling from Norwich. Good morning, David.
Farage, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm very well indeed, thank you. So, is Labour split? Now, you're a UKIPper, aren't you, David?
Do you need to know what my position is? So I'm the Home Affairs spokesman for the party now.
Right, well, that's fairly important that we do know that, yes.
So basically, can I just say this, Nigel? The bulk now of the British people realise that they've been lied and cheated to by both sides of the political system, and they are beginning to rise up against it. I mean, I went to a rally yesterday in Birmingham, and God, it was fantastic, Nigel. The support that we got was unbelievable. People, ex-Labour members, ex-Conservative members, they've had enough. They know they've been lied to, they know they've been cheated, and they want a party to truly represent them, which is us.
David, at the top of the hour, I'm going to be talking about the Cambridge Analytica Facebook row and, some quite strong words, being used by a former intern who worked for the Vote Leave campaign. Effectively, the Leave lobby cheated its way to victory are the headlines in some of the newspapers today. So are you accepting, when you talk about dishonesty and distrust in politics, do you think the Leave side cheated as well?
Absolutely not, Nigel, not at all. No, absolutely no way at all. We were given the massive support for the British people. You know, and I know, that as a direct result of that Brexit vote, the political establishment were, to put it mildly, flabbergasted and shocked that they'd lost. They'd never in a million years thought they were going to lose.
Yeah, and the Labour Party, David, were very, very shocked. But Corbyn has sacked Owen Smith, as you've seen, within the last couple of days. Yep. Is Corbyn now going to tell his MPs, shut up, we don't want to argue for a second referendum?
Do you know what, Nigel? I'm going to repeat to you what loads of Labour supporters said to me, or ex-Labour supporters. They just said, at the moment, the Labour Party are a bunch of nutters. That's what they said, and that's their view going forward. No, Nigel, I want our party, because we are a true British party standing up and speaking the truth. We want Brexit. We want our border controls. We want a million things looked after. And we're the only party that are going to do it, and the others don't like it, and they will try and get rid of us. You know we've been blocked by the media.
Perhaps part of UKIP's problem, David, and it's got plenty at the moment, but perhaps part of UKIP's problem is that when Theresa May gives speeches, you know, they vary, but sometimes when she speaks, she says the Conservative Party is the party of Brexit. We will take back control of our borders. I mean, that's what she says, isn't it?
Well, she might say it, but is it truth? What happened a couple of weeks ago, Nigel, that article that was in The Sun about the secret conversation went behind the scenes of the UK negotiators, civil servants for the EU, and it was recorded. You know, we're going to say we're actually doing this, but in reality, we're going to do nothing. It's lies, and more lies, Nigel, and the people have woken up to it, and we're not stupid.
Well, we'll have to see, David. At the moment, you know, and I've spent 25 years of my life being a member of UKIP, and I found a member. At the moment, the party is languishing. But we will see. We will see, David.
The membership is going to the roof, Nigel.
All right.
Honestly.
Okay.
To the roof.
A very bullish David from UKIP there, their new Home Affairs spokesman, thinking that UKIP can benefit from these divisions that he sees within Labour. Nigel, Labour is divided over Owen Smith's call for a second referendum. Please, as no one wants to divulge the reality of voting to stay, tell listeners the horrors of the grand European push for an empire in which the UK will be subsumed, says Jenny in Milton Keynes. Well, Jenny, they want to build a global superpower. They want to be the economic and military strongest nation on earth. I think it's all Walter Mitty, and I think the cracks are starting to show with Italian elections, etc. Nigel, the Labour Party are finished if they keep up their disruptive fence-sitting. All they do is undermine our negotiating position. Not so long ago, they would have found themselves in the Tower. Leave on WTO rules on the 29th of March, says a Brexiteer. Well, certainly, what is true is that Keir Starmer and others have been working very closely with Monsieur Barnier, and it was no particular surprise to see the Labour Party committing, post-Brexit, to us being part of a customs union, and who's to say it may be part of a single market. But on the issue of a second referendum, is Jeremy Corbyn finally putting his foot down, or will he face further rebellions from people like Owen Smith? May he even, at some point in time, have to confront Diane Abbott unless she changes her mind on having a second referendum. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusive in LBC. It is now 10:45. So is the Labour Party now seriously split? And I guess it is the sacking of Owen Smith, who of course ran against Jeremy Corbyn for the leadership. He got a third of the vote, and Smith himself is an absolutely dedicated Remainer. He wants a second referendum. He thinks leaving the EU is a disaster. He told me this to my face over fish and chips in Blackpool after we'd been on Question Time just a few weeks ago. Is the party split? Well, Keir Starmer today, I think, attempting to be a bit of a peacemaker, and there's no secret that Keir Starmer, wants us signed up to a customs union, and I think ultimately some form of single market as well, but he's trying to be a peacemaker, and he's saying, we will be leaving the European Union on March the 29th next year. But the real split, I don't think the real split is in Parliament. All parliamentary parties always have splits, always have different factions. But I think the fundamental gulf that split in the Labour Party is between their members of Parliament, most of whom are very Blairite, many of whom originate from London, and a membership out there, albeit a big one in London, but out there across the rest of the country, the whole momentum phenomenon very, very much to the left of where Labour are in Westminster, despite the fact they've got a left-wing leader. So, are they split? Are they in trouble? It's not just the Tories, that have problems over this. Or is this just normal party politics? So let me know. If you think Labour are split and in trouble, call me on 0345 6060 973. And it's quite interesting that Owen Smith, in a way, is linked into both of our stories today. Lawrence says to me, and he's talking about the Cambridge Analytica Leave campaign stuff that's in the newspapers and all over the media today. He says, this is the Ramona's last throw of the dice. Why didn't this story come out sooner? As for Owen Smith, what's the hype? He didn't follow party policy, so of course he was getting the axe. Philip says, Nigel, I believe Mrs May will betray the Leave voters. This was a call we had before the break. She will keep the UK in the customs union and possibly the single market. This will be done by using the backstop agreed in the transitional agreement, saying that the whole of the UK will have to stay in to prevent a hard border in Ireland or one in the Irish Sea. So, look, what happened, folks, this week in Brussels was Northern Ireland was barely discussed. That's going to be discussed at the next big European summit meeting, and that's going to take place in June. What was discussed, of course, at this meeting, firstly, was Russia, and she was seeking a resolution out of the European Union of solidarity on Russia. She actually got more than I thought she was going to get, I have to say, particularly given the attitude of countries like Greece, Hungary and Italy, and given the fact that Angela Merkel and Jean-Claude Juncker had congratulated Putin on his re-election. So she did get more on that, but it's what happened on Friday morning. It's the agreement of the basis of terms on which we are going to negotiate a trade deal. And I think the detail of that has not yet been unpicked. It barely features in today's Sunday newspapers, and that's because there are bigger, stronger stories. There's the NHS problem, and the Tories now pledging or appearing to pledge more money. Plus there is, this whole massive debate over Cambridge Analytica, a whistleblower on the scene, and an accusation now being made, not for the first time, that the Leave campaign cheated. And that's what we're going to be discussing in a few minutes' time. But for now, I want to try and stick, if we can, on the Labour Party. We're going to Philip, a first-time caller from Croydon. He's gone. I've lost him. We're getting him back. We've lost the line. That does sometimes happen, particularly if people are on mobiles, in their cars, stuck on the side of the road, or whatever it is. Yeah, Philip, are you there?
I'm here now, yeah.
Sorry, hello there. So, Philip, how do you use it? My contention is there's a great big split between the parliamentary party, the party in the country, and it's going to lead to a big public civil war.
Well, that's absolutely right, because if you go back to even David Miliband, it goes back to the Brexit vote as well, because they refused to talk to people about their legitimate concerns about the level of migration in this country. They just ignored it, and anybody that raised it as an issue were racist or lunatics. And they're still doing it now, really.
Corbyn is quite schizophrenic on this, Philip, isn't he? Because there are a couple of interviews he's given where he said, when we leave the European Union, we won't have unlimited labour coming into the country, which might be good for British workers. And then the next week he says, I'm a world citizen. It's a bit tough to know where I mean, is he again trying to keep everyone supporting him?
Sorry?
Is he just trying cynically to get everyone to support him?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think he's trying to please everybody. I think he's really trying to do a Theresa May, and it's about time they really came out and said what they believe. Instead of leading us up the garden path, which is how I feel.
Are you a Labour supporter normally, Philip?
I've voted Labour all my life.
Oh, have you?
But I won't vote Labour again.
So
because you can't. I don't trust them.
So what does Corbyn need to do to persuade you, a lifelong Labour voter, to stick with him?
They need to deliver Brexit, and they need to deliver it in the fullest meaning of what we voted for.
Right.
We voted to get back control of our borders, trade, the courts, the law, just everything. We don't need unelected bureaucrats running this country.
Philip, I think I might have made that argument myself once or twice. So you want Corbyn to deliver the Brexit you voted for, yeah?
Exactly, yes.
And being part of a customs union wouldn't really tick that box.
No, because we'd be tied in to the European Union. They'd be still telling us what to do and when to do it.
Yeah.
And also, I do not believe that we'll get the Brexit. I think this latest pronouncement by the European Union about the backstop position.
The Northern Ireland situation, yeah.
And annexing Northern Ireland. That is going to be what will keep us in. Because Theresa May, I believe, will turn around and say, well, we're going to have to stay in the customs union at least to avoid upsetting the Good Friday Agreement.
Well, that big battle, we're going to see that big battle. It's going to come up at the June summit, yet another big European summit, and perhaps that's going to prove, from the British government's perspective, the toughest nut of all to crack, because right from the start, Monsieur Barnier has made the absolute most of the difficulties that we've got with Northern Ireland. Philip, thank you very much indeed for your call. And I've got time for one last caller on this, who is... from Northampton. John from Northampton, hello.
Hi, Nigel.
Hi there. So, are they badly split?
Yeah, split. Yes, I am.
Hi there. John, are they badly split or not?
Yeah, totally split. And Keir Starmer, I mean, at the end of the day, you'd think he was the leader. The way he carries on, and pushing for another referendum and stuff like that. I mean, at the end of the day, we were voted to leave, and that's what we want. We want to leave the European Union.
Well, it was
a decision carried out.
It does look, John, overnight. It does look overnight, John, that maybe Starmer has come into line a little bit, not on the customs union or perhaps the single market, but on the second referendum. Starmer has come down on Corbyn's side, given the sacking of Owen Smith, and he said, therefore we will be leaving the European Union in March 2019. So maybe that's the Labour position. Maybe the Labour leadership, wants to get us. Go on.
From what I've seen, and when I've seen Stimmer talking in the Parliament and stuff like that, it's always been basically pro-Europe. He's always supported for Europe, and he's been saying quite a lot that he wants a referendum, and it makes me think whether he's just protecting his own job, which is what a lot of them do now. They're just career politicians, and they look after their own jobs, and they change their mind willy-nilly to whatever suits them at that time, and they just tell us what we want to hear.
And John, are you a Labour voter normally?
Well, yeah, I am normally a Labour voter, yeah, and at the last election, I was like an inch away from voting for UKIP because I believe that they're the only party that could deliver Brexit, which is what we voted for. Me and my partner.
John, I tell you what, I'm out of time, but I think there are millions like you and our previous caller, Philip, millions of Labour voters, naturally inclined Labour voters who want to see Corbyn deliver. Maybe that's why he's now against the second referendum. Well, look at the newspapers, see all the media today. The story is the Leave lobby cheated its way to victory. Did it? Do you think that's right? Do you believe the stories you see in the newspaper? Call me on 0345 6060 973. Text me on 84850. Tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. Watch us on Facebook. Comment there too. I sense we're in for a very lively hour.